Okay, now we're live. This is John A. Mattingly Jr. We're at Breton Bay, on Breton Bay, at Fitzy's Marina, which has wonderful crab cakes. They're open May 15th of this year, 2025. They're open Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and some holidays. When they have a holiday, it's next to a weekend. Alright, so John, you are the Assistant County Attorney in Calvert County, right?
I am.
You're a lifelong resident of St. Mary's County. You still live here?
Absolutely.
Okay. You've raised 3 children here? And you went to school where?
Riken.
Did you graduate?
I did.
Okay. Now, you've had an illustrious legal career. You're one of maybe the only attorney in St. Mary's County that's ever practiced before the Supreme Court.
I think that's correct, yes.
Okay. When you did that, did you win?
I did.
Great. What was the case?
Discover Bank versus Maine.
Okay. I have a memory of your client writing a wonderful letter to the editor on your behalf. Is that true?
That is true.
That was expressed her feelings?
Yes.
Okay. All right. You recently put your name in for appointment for the looming judgeship, to replace the expiration of our dear Judge Michael Stan.
Yes.
Is that correct?
I did.
Okay. Why did you do that?
Well, I thought I was qualified, primarily. Something I had always wanted to do since I was a clerk. My children are now raised, and I feel that I can really add it to the bench. I really felt it was the best way to serve my community and to fulfill a lifelong goal.
John, when you got out of law school, what's the first thing you did?
First thing I did when I got out of law school,
Yeah.
started studying for the bar. After I finished the bar exam, I came down here and started working for Phil Dorsey. I worked for him until I got my results back from what we did. Then I went to work as a clerk, law clerk, for U.S. Department candidates. And after I finished my clerkship, I opened a private practice with a partner.
Okay. Your years of practicing law, would you describe it as a general practice? You did criminal law, you did family law?
I didn't, well, after I first went into private practice, I took basically anything that come in with it.
So you were an ambulance chaser too?
Yes, I did it all. I don't think I chased any ambulances, but so obviously as part of that I did some domestic, not a lot. I did quite a bit of criminal work, and then I slowly transitioned into civil litigation and complex civil litigation. A lot of appellate work, a lot of federal work, and class actions, things of that nature.
And that's really where you earned your reputation, was in class action suits?
Well, that's where I got most of my reported opinions. A reported opinion is an appellate case generally that basically changes the law or illuminates some area of the law that the judge is going to illuminate. So, for exceptional cases, they'll have a published or reported opinion, depending on whether it's federal, it'll be published. If it's state, it's reported opinions. So I earned 11 of those, but I did a lot of jury work as well. I think I've done, the last count, I think I got almost 40. I think I stopped at 38 jury trials. I do have some jury trial records, some national verdict record, and a couple state records.
Okay. And how long have you been working in Calvert County now as a government lawyer?
8 years. 8 years. It was 8 years this week.
All right. And what kind of cases do you do there?
I do all the county's litigation.
Okay. Are you winning?
Yes. One thing you'll find as a government lawyer, it was shocking to me, is
Well, aren't government lawyers just known as settling at any price so they can get it over with? Is that correct?
No, absolutely not.
Well, I'm just a layman. What do I know?
No, absolutely not. Listen, it's it's definitely a different set of problems than you have in private practice. You don't have some of the pressures that you have in private practice. Your client is well funded. You can get the experts you need. Your witnesses generally work for the county, and they are professionals, so they know what they're doing. So it makes it a lot easier in some respects to litigate cases for the government. It certainly does. And you don't have to spend as much time marketing and chasing clients and things of that nature. So it's been a very, very nice transition.
Well, let's get down to the nitty-gritty.
Sure.
We have a case here where a judge expired. His term did not. Okay? So the term means we're short a judge. So the process is where the governor establishes a judicial nominating committee. That was formed from scratch, and it was composed of people from both Calvert and Charles County, and they had 6 people apply to be considered, and they sent 4 names to the governor, and now the governor gets to pick anyone he wants to. So the 4 names that they sent were 3 women and 1 guy who's the magistrate for the county, and he's been a lawyer here in the county for a while. And one of the women was Sue Ann Armitage, and she just ran against Amy Lorenzini for the judgeship last year and got herself very well known, even though she already was well known. And so she ran a hot campaign and tight race. And then the other one, the name that went up is the present county attorney, and she was like a top henchman of Richard Fritz for years. That's Buffy Giddens, and she's the assistant, or she's the county attorney for St. Mary's County. And then there's Marshall Williams, who's a family practices lawyer who's never had a jury trial. But she's the first woman or man, either one, of color to be sent to the governor, who is definitely the first governor of color who makes a big deal out of the fact that he is not colorblind, and he's going to appoint everybody of color to every post he possibly can. So it kind of makes it almost a guarantee that he's going to pick her. So that really means that she would be a weak candidate, doesn't have the experience, doesn't have the qualifications. I've asked her twice to sit for an interview, and she doesn't do it. So we can't get her to preach her own attributes. I mean, she has them. I'm sure she's a very nice lady, but if you haven't done any jury trials, you want to be a judge, it's kind of like, why didn't she just apply for a spot on the Board of Appeals or on the Recreation and Parks Board? She might be qualified for that. So, are you going to run for judge?
I guess it depends on who the governor picks.
Okay.
I would hope the governor picks someone who's qualified, who's done a lot of jury work. I mean, that's what the job entails. You may be a fabulous lawyer, and you may have a great legal mind, but the job is to preside over jury trials. And right now we're down to 2 judges. Our state's attorney, who ran on a platform of taking these felony cases to trial, she's doing a very good job of it. We have a lot of the cases stacked up, so we're going to need a judge who can hear and run a courtroom and can hear these jury trials. So I would hope the governor would pick someone who's had some jury trial experience. I would hope.
Okay, well, my guess is that's going to happen pretty soon because there's such a backlog going.
One would hope. I know that Judge Stanalonis had actually made a request to get an extra judicial seat in the circuit court because of the backlog.
Well, the chief judge testified in favor of it.
He did, absolutely. But obviously with Maryland's budget crisis and the way things happened, we didn't get the 4th judicial seat.
Well, the budget crisis, the way it happened was the governor came in, took a $5 billion surplus and blew it. I just wonder how much of it he's got buried in his backyard.
I'll leave that to the 4th estate to speculate.
Well, I just want to know, where's the loot? Where's the loot?
There's your line.
It is.
This is the line that made you famous.
The guy is incredible. He thinks we're all morons. And now he's raising taxes. You know, it's a good thing you had all those U-Hauls down there on Great Mills Road, because they're going to need every one of them. People trying to leave the state as fast as possible. But only pretty soon you're only going to have the tax takers and the liberals left. Eat each other. I don't know. Okay. So you've made it clear you're not going to give us an answer today about whether or not you're running for judge.
If the governor picks an outstanding candidate, then I would have nothing to run on.
Is there an outstanding candidate?
I mean, once again, I just hope the governor would pick someone who's actually has some jury trial experience.
Okay. All right. Now, a few other questions.
Yes, absolutely.
Are there any particular cases going on in Calvert County right now that you've been involved in that you're free to talk about? I saw that you were asked for comment on a story the other day by a member of the press, and you didn't have a comment for them. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
I don't.
Oh,
The last case I was interviewed for was a case, was actually a land use case. It went up to the then Court of Appeals, now the Supreme Court of Maryland. And I did give a brief interview after the fact, after the trial.
But would you say that a lot of the cases you've had in the 8 years you've been there, center around land use?
Land use.
And
Well, there's also a strong contractual component to my practice as well.
Right.
Litigating contracts could be anything from procurement to.
But the pressure for development, isn't that really been the problem for a while in Calvert?
There is a pressure for development, but the county commissioners have recently passed a new zoning ordinance that I think in Calvert County, at least at the last gubernatorial election, there was a strong push by the people of Calvert County to slow down development. And I think the commissioners have been very responsive to that.
Let me try this another way.
Okay.
If the governor picks an outstanding candidate for judge and you decide not to run for that, do you see running for office again in your future, other than this judgeship?
I'm sure there'll be something out there in the future.
Would you run for state's attorney?
I really like our current state's attorney. I think she has kept her promise to the people. She ran on a platform. She was elected on that platform. I think she's kept her word. I don't see anything there. I think that's admirable.
Okay.
Now, whether you like her or not, I just think she ran on a platform and she's sticking to it. And once again, I admire that.
How old are you now?
I'm 56.
Okay, in these years, since growing up here, graduating from Riken, going off to law school, going to the Supreme Court, okay, who have you picked up as a person you admire the most in the law?
Oh, Walter Dorsey.
Can you say why?
Yes. First of all, he was a phenomenal trial lawyer. I always respect trial lawyers. He was phenomenal. But besides his ability to try a case, he was very undersold. People underestimate, I should say, his legal intellect, which I'll put up against anyone's. He had a brilliant mind. Brilliant mind. You could sit there and talk law to him, and it was just amazing. The debates you could have with him. I worked for him for 3 years, and it was fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. And juries loved him. Juries loved Walter Dorsey. So besides having a strong, legal, analytic mind, he also had that people touch.
And for the viewer that doesn't know, he was 5 times elected state's attorney of St. Mary's County.
Probably would have been more if he didn't decide to retire.
Right. And after serving in the Korean War, he came back and he ran for state's attorney. Then he went to the state senate for 1 term, and then came back, worked for the attorney general for a few years, and then ran and won 4 consecutive terms as state's attorney. Ended his term in 1999. He did not run again in 1998. So you started also working with Phil Dorsey.
Yes.
Phil Dorsey has just recently retired. What is the most remarkable thing about Phil Dorsey that you could explain to people?
First of all, Phil is an amazing person. He is generous. He is compassionate. He'll help people, and I've always appreciated that.
he had an uncanny knowledge of the county. Phil gave me a stack of files of interviews he's done with people around the county. There's 3 of them now on the Chesapeake Today website called under Dorsey Land, of interviews he's done with Bob Copel and Jay and Bill Coombs, and one with Leonard Copsey. Really good for anyone from the county who wants to learn a little bit more about the yesteryears of the county and how things came to be, and a lot of the good backstories for those that are interested, in the families that may not have been able to learn it from their older members of their family. They can watch these almost at any time, and they're free to watch.
He certainly loves St. Mary's County.
Yeah.
Loves St. Mary's County.
Okay. All right. Well, again, I want to thank you for this time today. We're at Fitzy's Marina. This is Ken Rossignol with the Chesapeake Today. After talking with John A. Mattingly, Jr., who has elective office in his future. Thank you.
Thank you.